Happy Tuesday, guys. I'm just going to do a quick trade recap on the Euro USD. I just kind of exited out of this trade today completely, so I'm all out of this trade. It was a really decent trade. I'm really happy with kind of the execution, the planning process, the patience with it, and where I took profit. The 2 points I took profit, and kind of how I had my trail stop, that on the very last portion of my position I got trail stopped out today. So great trade overall. We're kind of at a pretty important spot in the market here on the week. I mean, this is the weekly chart. So we are at we just tagged the level today, or a zone that we haven't been at since we broke it back in the end of 2014. Sorry, let me see that. Yeah, December 29, 2014 was the last time we were at kind of the levels that we tagged today. So it's going to be interesting to see how price reacts here. Initial reaction is kind of slightly, bearish. People probably just taking profit. So we'll have to see what happens in the next few days, weeks, months, whatever. We'll see. Anyways, let's get into the trade here on the daily chart. I've taken maybe 5 trades in nearly the past month. Just been super busy with traveling, and it was my birthday, so we were traveling for that. I just got back last night from another like week-long little mini vacation to see some friends. So just been kind of busy here. Now this trend line is kind of interesting. I want to talk about it a little bit before I get into the exact trade execution. Sometimes you'll see trend lines that look like this that seem to kind of cut through price action. And I really use the word cut through or slice through carefully, because when I draw a trend line kind of like this, I'm not really ignoring, some of the price action. It all kind of makes the trend line valid in my eyes. And this is a perfect example of, why I drew the trend line versus, drawing the trend line something like this, which you'll see a lot of in my in my recaps, kind of an extreme trend line where it's only the wicks. The reason why I drew it like this, and I kept it, let me change the color for you guys. We'll do, I don't know, blue. The reason why I drew it like this and kept it like this and considered it valid is just for obvious reasons. Once it was kind of established here, if you call this kind of this, initiation point, establishment point, whatever you want to call it. The third test was pretty perfect. We had a bull day. This is the daily chart. And then we broke and kind of traded below it. But we tested it, like pretty much on every candle almost, except for maybe these 2 days. Before a strong impulsive move broke back above and actually went on to new structure highs, right? Came back down, tested it again, and came back down here, and depending on how tight you have it, you could potentially test it at these 3 days, maybe even here before going on having that impulse move that you would expect from an uptrend. So that's why I drew this trend line, and that's why I used it as part of my analysis instead of that red trend line I just deleted. I had that other trend line in my mind, and part of the reason why I wanted to take the trade here was I felt if we got below this trend line, we would potentially start breaking some structure levels here. The definition of like an uptrend is, consistently making higher highs and higher lows, right? So, if these are my higher highs and higher lows along the trend, this wasn't formed yet, this last one. If this was the last potential higher low, before kind of moving on, if we started breaking down here, kind of the next logical place potentially for, bulls to or bears to want to take it is, maybe kind of down around this general area. That was the last place that, they kind of, the buyers had issues with, taking the price higher, right? Sorry if that's confusing, but so anyways, I wanted to get in here, risk what I did, to see. I was willing to risk what I did to see if price would continue to respect the trend, this blue trend line, the way it had been, really respecting it in the past, over and over and over again. And you can see I marked it up before. There were a number of other confluent levels in my decision as well. If we go down to the 4-hour chart, which was, I believe, how I based my entry off of. I can't remember. It's, been a week. But, we had kind of this wedge pattern formation that was forming here. We have our, impulsive move. We find a top. And then we have that corrective structure that you often see. People refer this as like a bull flag, I don't know, pennant, whatever you want to call it, a flag formation, before finally breaking out of it and then coming back down to kind of retest it. And this is kind of another good little lesson here on how to draw things, or how you could potentially draw it. If you use the top there, you can draw it kind of like this, which this, if you drawn it like this to incorporate, this point, that point, these wicks here, this touch, this test, all those, this was a perfect break and retest. So I consider this probably the true support and resistance flag top, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But I saw Confluence where I entered, and that's why I entered. That's why I entered all my trades, because I have that level of confluence there. I had this previous resistance level here that was broken, and that you can actually extend back pretty far, on this chart here. Just kind of had, you can see it came up, found resistance, broken, support, it kind of trickled back and forth a little bit, but it used it both as support and resistance, almost every time that it, was around this level. Fib wise, if you take the quick little impulsive move that broke out of that flag pattern there, since I didn't use that one, I'll delete it. I used this extreme high wick top bull flag, and so that was my entry right there. My stop was not quite below, so I wanted to target not the extreme highs that we had recently made, but kind of the general area. I had a couple of profit targets there based off of this lower time frame Fibonacci. So I I kind of had my eye, around this negative 61.8, but not quite all the way up there because, this was essentially the highs that where that was. So I kind of wanted to be taking profit, as price was getting up there. So my stop, in order to get a 1-to-1, let me drop down to the 4-hour chart. You can see where I entered was kind of right here, and this is pretty much my precise entry on this bear candle here. Took a little bit of drawdown, but not not too bad. You have to be accepting of that drawdown and be actually willing to lose. And I try to keep the mentality. I try to go into each trade almost expecting to lose. That way, if I do lose, it's not like a kick in the face, like what the heck happened? Everything lined up right, because you remember it's all about a game of probabilities. It's just a math, statistics, probabilities. You just kind of find an edge and trade it, and if your edge is has a positive expectancy, then over time, over a series of 20, 30, 50, 100 trades, you will be profitable. And I kind of have my style of trading that I do, and it works out well for me and has created that positive expectancy over time. So I took a trade just like this, basically on the pound dollar, and just almost I was up 60 pips at one time. I think my take profit was 80 pips, maybe my first kind of target. So I almost hit my take profit, but then it came back, and by that time I had mitigated some of my risk. So I cut my risk nearly in half. So it was only like a 30 or 40 pip loss at that time. So it's super super manageable, and it's okay to have losses, but so I wanted to be out before the highs. Overall kind of target was this weekly zone. You can see we tagged it today and have had a pretty bearish reaction off of it so far. But we're actually catching support. And I actually had I just barely got trail stopped out. I had my stop essentially where the low is. I think it was at 55, I think I remember seeing. But yeah, I kind of had it down in this zone. I believe I put it just below this wick. Had I put it below this zone here, I'd still be in it. But this is such a strong zone. I can't imagine that we're not going to at least probably come back down. But that's that's either neither here nor there. I'm out of the trade. It was a beautiful trade, a 2-target winner for me. I only had just a small little position size on right there, and it was, it was only, so it was. I took half of my position off, so that was half, and then I took half of that half off. So it wasn't a large position size. I didn't give much back, I guess is what I'm saying. So I was super happy with how this trade worked out. The targets worked out perfectly. Pretty painless trade overall. So if you have any questions, let me know. And hopefully I didn't confuse you with the trend lines or anything else. So shoot me a message if you need any questions answered. Take care.